EFL is every league, the Championship, League One, and League Two.
So every league, every professional league below the Premier League.
Below the Premier League. Then the FA looks after, obviously, the national team, grassroots football, the women's game.
But not the Premier League.
And the development of football. But they don't really have much to do with the Premier League. They often butt heads on many issues, usually club versus country, players, etc. A lot of history there. So they're the main three kind of
actors in the game.
Yeah, exactly. Protagonists that we're going to be focusing on. So the proposal says that the big six that they've decided are Manchester United, Arsenal, Chelsea, Man City, Tottenham, and Liverpool. Okay. Now, it's no coincidence that these teams happen to be the richest in the league, but these are the big six. Now, their proposal says that at the moment in the league, in the Premier League, every team has one vote and it's an equal vote.
All right.
And for any rule to be passed, 14 teams need to vote in favour.
Okay, so the majority of the teams.
Yeah. So, but under this proposal, the big six, their vote would count more.
Kind of see what they're doing there.
Plus the three longest serving teams in the league, which currently, like the three other longest serving teams in the league, which currently would be Everton, West Ham, and Southampton, their vote would weigh more as well.
Okay. So it's the big six plus three.
Plus three. Mm-hmm. But for any laws to pass, of the 9, they would need 2/3, which is
6.
Good, right?
Quick, simple math.
Oh, such coincidence.
But then they found a way to kind of sugarcoat all this situation because it sounds kind of grim when you say it like that.
Yeah,
but then there is also a bright side to it, a silver lining.
Yeah, first I want to talk about what their power would be. So they would have the power to change laws. So, for example, when the laws about changing from 5 substitutes back to 3, which was voted before the start of the season, that would be an example. But they would also have the power to veto somebody taking over another club. Which,
interesting.
Like, for example, if Newcastle had been bought this summer, would they be part of a Big 7 because they're the richest?
Are you saying that City would veto on an Arab sheikh just buying another Premier League club?
Exactly, right? It's the spoiled kids going, no, I don't want them to have it. If you know what I mean?
I want to be the only one.
Yeah, it's so
kind of like that.
It's, no matter how you look at it, it's a power grab, right? It's opportunistic, it's a power grab, but...
And the body's pretty big.
There are a lot of things in the proposal that I do quite like.
Okay, let's hear them.
So, they would get rid of the Carabao Cup, or the League Cup, okay, which is, France did it last year because they saw it was just too many games. The fixture congestion is ridiculous. It's a cup that mainly is used for playing youngsters, which has its value, but I think the competition has kind of lost its relevance.
Yeah, didn't Klopp say that he didn't even want to show up to one of the games because he was tired?
Yeah, I think Guardiola loves it because it's basically a definite trophy every year, but it's kind of lost its relevance. And they would also get rid of the Community Shield, which I think they should have got rid of once they stopped giving the money to charity. When it was the Charity Shield, it's pointless. It's a nice kind of occasion, but we don't need it, right? 1
second for the people who are not as much into English football as Ruairi is in the UK. Correct me if I'm wrong. Right. We've got the Premier League, then we've got
the Championship.
The Championship. No. Okay, I'm talking about the tournaments.
Oh, sorry. Right.
FA Cup, Premier League, the League Cup. So they would want to remove the League Cup, basically, and the Community Shield, which is played between the winner of the FA Cup and the winner of the League Cup.
Of the Premier League.
Of the Premier League.
Yeah.
All right.
Exactly. So it's like the Supercoppa in Italy, right?
Yeah.
Kind of, right?
But in Italy, we don't have the League Cup, but we have a sort of FA Cup called Coppa Italia.
That I kind of like. They would cap the amount you could spend on agents, which I think is brilliant.
Wolverhampton might be worried about that.
Yeah, and United just giving 10 million to Cavani's agent, right? But then there are some things that, clubs would have the right to sell 8 of their own games on their own platform, right? So kind of like Netflix kind of deal. But obviously, Crystal Palace aren't going to be able to sell their games for as much as Manchester United will be able to sell theirs. So again, it furthers the financial gap between these teams. They want to reduce the league from 20 to 18, and they want to have 2 automatic relegations and a play out, right? Okay. So the team that would finish 16th would go into play outs with the team that finished 3rd, 4th, and 5th in the Championship to see who was relegated or promoted. The problem with play outs is when you look at it in Germany, the team in the top league almost always wins.
It doesn't make much sense to make them play.
It's kind of trivial, really. Like, obviously, the odd time you might get a surprise, but it's like, anyway, the team in the top division tends to win. So, yeah, there are some good things, some bad things for the Premier League. Then we've got to look at how it affects the Championship, okay, or the EFL, so Championship, League One, League Two.
Yeah.
At the moment, they get 8% of the TV money from the Premier League as a parachute payment for when they get relegated. But this says that it would go up to 25% of the TV rights every year. So
it really boils down, and this is just the tip of the iceberg, to the M word.
Yeah, it's all just money.
Cash rules everything around me.
Dollar bill, y'all.
Exactly.
Right? So they would get 25% of the TV rights every year, but that would mean no parachute payments for relegated teams. Right. They would introduce a wage cap in the Championship. Mm-hmm. But of the 250 million given to all the leagues, only 20 million would go to League One and League Two. So 230 stays in the Championship. Now, the worry is that this just creates a Premier League 2, right? That the gap between League One and the Championship gets as big as the gap between the Championship and the Premier League, just making it even harder for any teams to get anywhere, right? I think it just widens a gap just in a different place. So that's how it affects the EFL. Then we're going to look at the FA. So almost as a afterthought to think, how can we curry more favour with people? They've decided to chuck the women's game £10 million.
10 million?
Yeah, 10 million, right?
That's a big number, isn't it?
How much Cavani's agent got, by the way, right?
Yeah. Let that sink in.
Yeah, chuck grassroots football 10 million. But again, more good ideas. They're going to cap away tickets at £20,
and that's big in England, isn't
it?
Like,
this is like huge. There's been protests for years for clubs like Liverpool. I think Arsenal, especially, away fans have complained at the price you have to pay for tickets, and they're going to subsidise away travel. Yeah. Again, if you have to travel, like if you're from the north, like myself, and you're trying to get to a game in London, it costs a fortune. Right?
So this is something that I kind of want to throw in for people who have. I know that we've got quite a few American listeners. Football is known, well, you call it soccer, guys. We'll forgive you for that. But it's known as the sport of the people. Yeah. You know, it's a sport that you can play with nothing. And historically, football, that was the cool thing about football, that it was literally the sport of the class workers, you know?
Yeah.
So at this moment, it feels more and more and more like it's always about money. And especially in England, you were telling me that if you're an Arsenal fan and you want to go watch your team, you have to even pay to be on a waiting list.
Yeah, it's insane. And then when you get there, the season ticket is over £1,000.
Yeah.
Right?
So right now, I'm not trying to say that these proposals, the big picture project, is a good thing, but I'm glad that I know that they're doing this to sugarcoat the whole thing. Yeah. But it's good that fans are also being considered after having complained about this issue of ticket prices being too high for such a long time.
Yeah, I think especially for away fans, because you can complain about the Emirates, Anfield, Old Trafford turning into tourist destinations, which they are. There's no getting away from it. But the people who travel away are, in general, the real fans, right? They're the ones who give up every weekend to go and watch their team, right? So for them to get something would be nice. And the last thing that they include that I think we've all been hoping for, and which might improve the atmosphere again, is a possible return to safe standing.
What is safe standing?
So obviously in Italy you have seats, but nobody uses them.
No.
People just use them to stand
Notoriously.
on.
Yeah, exactly. If you're short, just don't go to the stadium, guys.
Yeah, just you sit on the side with the families and you keep your mouth shut, right?
Yeah, but if you want to go to like the Curva Nord or the Curva Sud, which are like the hardcore supporter sections, you never sit down.
You can't. There's no way. So safe standing is a way of, they're like barriers almost, that I believe can be turned into chairs. But anyway, it's a safer way of standing. They've got it in a lot of grounds in Germany have it. I believe Celtic have it, or Celtic are about to get it. So it's something that a lot of fans have been asking for a while. So it's another thing that they've thrown in that could be like kind of trying to sugarcoat the pill a bit. But breaking news, just before the record, it looks like the proposal has been rejected. The EFL are heavily behind the proposal, of course, because they've already said that within 5-6 weeks, a lot of clubs could be in a lot of trouble, if not out of business, right? So they're desperate for this deal to get done. But it looks like the other Premier League teams have kind of turned around and said, like, go fuck yourself, right? Yeah. But just because it's been rejected once doesn't mean this isn't going to come in. We've seen what the Big Six intend to do now, or what they want to do. So we know that we're going to have this in some shape or form.
Yeah. Which kind of like feeds into the idea that Gianni Agnelli, Juventus's president, had about creating a super league of the most notorious and the most
richest.
Let's call them the richest clubs in Europe, which would put an end once and for all to romantic football as we know it. So also another thing, I realized that before I said class working people, and I want to say working class people. Yeah. That's been bugging me for the past 3 minutes. I was like, what was my mistake in that sentence? And it was working class people. But Atalanta making it to the Champions League, making it almost to the semifinals in Champions League. That's what we love about football. And I know that some of our listeners, they kind of dread the smaller teams. They don't want the smaller teams to be in the top flight leagues. But guys, picture being a footballer. That's what you dream of. You dream of starting to play for your home team, and then you move up and up and up, and eventually you make it to the top flight because you deserved it. Yeah. It's about merit. We don't want football to be only about money.
It should be a meritocracy. It's the ultimate meritocracy.
I totally understand how eventually everything, and we go back to the cash rules, everything around me, because it's true, cash rules, everything around us. But seeing how football has become only about merchandising, about being able to make the most money out of TV rights, it's kind of sad, because in the end, at the center of everything, there is a ball with 22 players fighting for a result. Yeah. And I don't care how small your team is, your team should be always able to play against bigger flight teams and eventually defeat them even.
But I think it also goes beyond like the glamorous ties in the Champions League. Most teams, like if you asked supporters before the season, which game are you most looking forward to? It's not playing Real Madrid in the Champions League. It's your local rival. Yeah. It's the team that beat you last year. It's in the Championship. It's, I don't know, doing better than you did last year. If we move to the European Super League, it's basically the death of domestic football.
Yeah.
Like every league, even if they did continue it, would be meaningless really, because everything would be, okay, you won the English league, but the big boys aren't in it. If you know what I mean? So I think it's going to happen eventually. I just hope it's not for 30 years. I don't know. The day it happens, I think I lose interest in football.
So the problem in football right now is how to share the money evenly, because there is a shit ton of money going around in football and it's not shared evenly among clubs. I mean, it's just a matter of understanding the most, how could you say, the rightest way of just putting the teams. Of course, Manchester United will always be bigger than Brighton and Hove Albion. Yeah. They will always be a bigger club, but they need to have the same opportunities. They need to be able to fight on the pitch, and then the money needs to be shared, if not evenly, more evenly than it is being shared right now.
Yeah, I don't think it needs to be like split evenly, but it just needs to be
everybody needs to be
a bit
given
more
a
consideration.
Yeah.
Just a bit more consideration for the other teams.
Otherwise, the rich teams are only going to get richer, and the poor teams are simply never going to make it. A reality like Atalanta, what Atalanta did last year, what Leipzig have done, but that's a little different because they've got Red Bull behind the ownership. That's pretty big. Yeah. But what Atalanta did, they would take that, what Leicester did in the Premier League, that would all be history. And we would be looking only at Manchester City competing with Manchester United, in the Champions League, Real Madrid against Juventus, and it would always be the same thing. Don't you want to see Atalanta try to defeat PSG? Well, I do want to see that.
Well, this is it, exactly. We all love the romance of football, right? That's why we fell in love with it, and I think it would be a move away from that, definitely. It's all very depressing. I heard on the Football Ramble, if anyone hasn't checked out that podcast, you definitely should. Luke on the Football Ramble came up with a great phrase about this whole proposal, which was, you can save a drowning man without taking his house.
And this is going back to the big picture project. Like, you can save...
You can help without trying to fucking get something for yourself.
You can help a club survive without taking everything from them.
Exactly. And I think maybe we'll see how it evolves over the next couple of weeks. I think it is going to be quite a quick process because, like I said,